Burnout art depicts the feelings living inside burnout. The idea behind it is actually quite simple. Most of us who have been through burnout know the experience of trying to explain what's happening inside of us and finding that the words just don't portray the right image. Not because we are not articulate, but because what burnout creates inside is something specific and layered. Words like tired, stressed, overwhelmed show the surface of the feeling, however, they don't really depict its core. And what I kept noticing both in my own experience and in the women I worked with is that this inability to name the feeling is not a small problem, because when you can't name something, you can't acknowledge it properly. And when you don't acknowledge it properly, you just keep deferring it, pushing it into the background, telling yourself you'll deal with it later, while it keeps accumulating. That cycle, the deferring, the accumulation, the feeling building up with nowhere to go, that is what burnout art is trying to interrupt. What I make as a burnout artist are portraits of the specific emotional states that build up in that cycle. Not illustrations of burnout in general, but portraits of individual feelings. The shame that has no specific failure attached to it, the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, the flatness where motivation used to be, the sense that you're going through the motions of a life that used to feel like yours. Each painting is trying to do one very specific thing, which is to create the moment of recognition, the moment where someone looks at it and something in them goes quiet and thinks, I didn't know it looked like this. I thought it was just me. Because that moment of having your interior experience reflected back to you in a form that exists outside of you is the opposite of the deferring and ignoring that the cycle requires. It's the beginning of acknowledging what's actually there. And acknowledgement, in my experience, is where everything else has to start. That is what burnout art is. It's art that names the things burnout creates that most of us have been carrying without acknowledging. It's art that makes the invisible visible. And it's made for the woman who's tired of feeling like what she's experiencing is too complicated or too private or too hard to explain. Because it was never those things. It just didn't have a form yet. If you're in the middle of burnout right now and you're tired of feeling like you have to explain yourself, this collection is for you. Join my mailing list for early access and check out my website for resources where you can learn how to identify burnout and recover.